The big story that we are tracking right now. The Siddaramaiah government in Karnataka is in a conundrum over new rules to grant religious minority tag to higher education institutions by scrapping the requirement of having to enroll a fixed percentage of students from a particular community from the minorities. Now, the cabinet had to defer a decision after Minority Welfare Minister Zameer Ahmed Khan is said to have raised a red flag on the delicate subject. Now, the Higher Education Department sought the Cabinet's approval to amend rules on granting religious minority status. Now, in Karnataka, institutions offering higher education and technical education had to admit 50% students belonging to the minority religion that they cater to. This could also mean linguistic minorities as well. Now, for example, a Muslim minority institution had to have 50% Muslim students. These requirements were scrapped in March in a decision aimed at institutions run by Christians, Jains, Sikhs and Parsis, as they were finding it difficult to admit 50% students from their communities in order to retain their minority institution status. But Zameer Ahmed raised an alarm about how new rules covered institutions run by all minorities, including Muslims. Apparently, Muslim minority institutions are not in favor of the relaxation as they have enough students for them to meet the community criterion, that is 50% requirement of students in that institution. Now, relaxation could mean non-minority students outnumbering minorities in their institutions, and they fear that particular aspect is what is being said. Well, now for more on this, I'm joined by my colleague Vajula. Vajula, you know, this particular plan to have this relaxation for minority institutions is now technically driving a wedge between the minorities themselves. You have the Muslim minority on one side and you have the other minorities on the other side when it comes to educational institutions and this plan by the government to push this particular aspect of that law. It looks like this is another law that could in fact create divisions within minority communities in Karnataka.
Well, Varghese, firstly, this law has been put in place after a cabinet decision that came in March when they said that 25% should be reserved for minority community secondary education and 50 in higher education. And that is when a lot of minority communities where Buddhists, Jains, Parsis came forward to the minister and told them that we are not able to put 50% of our students in our minority institution because our population is less. While the Muslim majority, Muslim population, Muslim ministers came out and said that yes, they have a larger chunk of population within the minority, and therefore, for them, it is going to be difficult if this has been scrapped. Therefore, the education minister made it clear yesterday, saying that we will be having another discussion over this in the coming parliament, coming cabinet meeting, because a lot of Muslim minority leaders have raised this objection with regards to how it will affect their institution because their population is higher compared to the other minority sector. That is why they have been able to give education to more than 50% of their minority students. And that is when the minister clearly clarified, saying that we are not scrapping anything. The whole purpose is that how much ever students can be given education within their minority status should be given education. The rest of it will be discussed in the next cabinet meeting, is what the minister clarified yesterday when he raised this issue with regards to the minority status that institute have. Because we need to understand that Muslims are not the only minority. You have linguistic minorities, you have caste minorities, and there are some minorities which are larger than the other minorities in the sector. So therefore, what the minister clarified yesterday, we are coming up with a blueprint in the next cabinet meeting where we will give a clear clarification. But for now, the 50% reservation, 50% reservation has been relaxed so that the institution can give education to as many students as they can, whether it is 25%, 30%. But their minority status will not be affected. The institution's minority status will not be affected by this.
Vajul, just trying to understand. So now when the Muslim objection is there, Muslim institution objections are there, are they looking at the character of their institution being affected if this issue of relaxation comes in? While for the other minorities, it is that the character of the institution is more in the establishment of the institutions and not within the character of the students who are in fact within the the institution itself. So both ways they think differently, isn't it? That the same law is likely to affect both the communities in a different manner. That is to say, the Muslim character of a Muslim institution might be affected, seeing that non-Muslims might be at the larger scale when it comes to admissions, and while in the minority, the other minorities who have lesser numbers, they are okay with having lesser students from their communities because they won't be able to fill as how the Muslims have been able to fill, because they are the larger minority in Karnataka compared to other minorities. So in that way, this would in fact, they will be able to preserve the minority character, but it need not be saying that it will be only on the management front, but not on the institutions front, that is the intake of students. So it's a two different kind of problems that they are in fact facing.
Well, yes, the Muslim minority somewhere are worried because we've seen cases in Aligarh where the minority status tag was taken away, and that is where the objection was raised. But on the other hand, the other religious minorities have raised this issue because they do not have the population where they could cater to 50% of the reservation for their own students, and that is where they came to the minister and clarified that our population is not compared to the other minorities in the minority category. Now, if we see the population of Christians, Parsis, and Buddhists compared to the population of Muslims in the minority sector, Muslim is a larger minority chunk, and that is why they are able to cater to 50% of their minority status. But on the other hand, the others are not able to do it, and they also fear that if they are not able to do it, will their minority status be taken away? And that is when the minister clarified, saying that we are still coming up with a blueprint. These are pertinent issues that have been raised by not just the Muslim community, by the Christians and the other communities, and that is why what one has to do is for the purpose of education, the relaxation that has been done by the ministry is everyone can be given education as far they clear the criteria of the pass marks. After that, what will happen is we will be deciding this with the next cabinet minister, what the minister clarified.
Well, also, Vajiola, now we have seen how sensitive the issues of minorities have been. So, is there a possibility that Karnataka, especially the Minority Welfare Ministry, as well as the cabinet, will have to now, in fact, go ahead with a proper definition of minorities in such a way that they would be able to accommodate the interests of all of them, because all of them have different interests. So, you can be a linguistic minority, you can be a caste minority, you can be a religious minority, but then that definition needs to be put out, saying that which minorities based on population will be able to in fact go ahead and carry on with the relaxations, or those who don't want to keep that relaxation can go ahead, that relaxation need not be applied to them. So in that way, they will probably have to tweak this entire amendment, wouldn't they?
But as far as I remember, it's the central government's discipline when it comes to deciding how much percentage when it comes to the minorities, and to decide how they would tackle the issue with the minorities. As per the state government, this thing it is being very clear cut with regards to what the percentage of minorities are with regards to different minorities. It is very clear the fact that in the minority sector, the Muslims are the majority, then comes your Sikhs, then comes your Christians, then comes the Sikh, and then comes the other linguistic minorities in the linguistic categories. Therefore, that has been set aside, and that has been going on for a very long time. But with regards to what the institutions are having raised the issue, that is something that has to be pointed out, because it caters to the entire idea of education and keeping the minority status alive of that educational institute, because we know Muslims have their own educational institutes, Christians have their own educational institutes, various other linguistic communities have their own educational institutes, to make sure that the students or the members of their own institutions or their minority communities get the education what others are also getting with regards to private sectors or public sectors. So, with regards to whether they will have to tweak that, change that, is something that the government will have to take a call, whether it is required or not. But with regards to the education purpose of it, that is something that will be done. And it has also been awaited for the entire caste census report, because that is something that will give a clarity to the people with regards to what is the status of their community, whether the community has increased in the coming years, in the past few years or not, or it has declined, is something that the communities have been asking, be it the Veer Shevas, Lingat, or the other communities, be it the Muslims. And that is why the purpose of caste census is very important, because we've not seen a census also in the last 10 years And that is why caste census is something that the chief minister has also been pushing, because these are the issues that you have raised will be clarified only when a caste census is done.
Right, Vajula, stay with us. We have another major story coming in from Karnataka. In the cabinet decision taken by the Karnataka government, action will be taken by the Lokayukta SIT on illegal mining activities of 10 companies. Now, the cabinet has decided to file cases against these 10 companies for illegal mining. The companies that come under scrutiny are the Mysore Manganese Company, M. Dashratha Ramareddy Company, Alam Veerabhadrappa Mining Company, Karnataka Limpo Mining Company, Anjana Minerals, Razia Khanam Mining Company, Milana Minerals Company, M. Srinivaslu Company, Chennakeshwar Reddy Lakshmi Narasimha Mining Company, G. Rajshekhar Company. Now, these are the companies that are in fact being scrutinized, especially when it comes to mining. My colleague Vaji is still there. Another major decision from the cabinet, especially on the mining aspect of it. We have seen certain companies, in fact, being under the scrutiny of various governments, not only the Congress government in Karnataka, even the previous BJP government has been looking at mining. The issue has always been about the boundaries that are given for the mining companies being breached, especially the area of mining that has been sanctioned. They've been sanctioned several blocks, but then they tend to in fact breach from there and do illegal mining further. And it doesn't get accounted when it comes to government records as well, and the state has been losing revenue over it. So it's been a big issue. Right now, it looks like 10 companies have been, in fact, taken up for scrutiny and over illegal mining. How does this, in fact, owed well to the larger aspect of mining in Karnataka? And there are several companies who are engaged in iron ore mining as well as quarrying as well. So how does it, in fact, have an impact on the mining companies in Karnataka?
Well, these companies that have been listed by the government yesterday after the cabinet decision were companies that have already had cases against them. These are the companies that are already being flagged out for illegal mining activities, like you mentioned, of overshadowing what they've given, of what right they've already been given. And that is why yesterday, after a very long time, the cabinet decided that, yes, this has been a pending issue with regards to taking a decision. And they decided to take decision on 10 companies that have been highlighted for violating norms and regulations on a larger scale. Now, how this is going to be effective is something that we'll have to wait and watch, because the decision has happened yesterday, but these companies will raise their objections because they have been a part of the mining sector for a very long time, and they've been contributing to the exchequer also with regards to whatever mining that is. But in the past few days, we've also seen the case of Satish Sale or the iron ore, illegal iron ore activity that was done by the MLA Satish Sale, where close to thousands and thousands of crores worth iron ore were illegally sent to other countries without permission or without grant from the center or the state. That is where the government today, yesterday, decided that it is more important to take action before other companies, other iron ore companies also get that leverage of going beyond the call of the government or beyond the information of the government. And that is when yesterday's cabinet decision comes with regards to giving a message to other iron ore companies that if you continue to violate norms and regulations, then you will also be sanctioned. And that is what the government has done with the decision that they took yesterday.
So, when we talk about mining as a sector in Karnataka, it has got a huge contribution when it comes to the exchequer as well. The government seems to be, in fact, looking at the losses that have been, the government has been, in fact, facing because of these illegal mining at the blocks. But then, Vajula, we are seeing the companies are being scrutinized. But the question has always been that, when that block of is being given to a particular mining company, as the mining process happens, there are authorities who are supposed to inspect. There are authorities from various government departments that are supposed to, in fact, give a report on the mining progress that has been taken care. They are supposed to, in fact, see whether the mining is taken within the allocated blocks or not. What about scrutinizing the government officers who are involved in this?
Well, that is also a matter of concern for the government, because nothing can happen without the information of the officials and the authorities who are managing that particular sector. And that is where the government first, as of now, has decided to go ahead with the sanctions on these particular 10 companies where they will be investigated. And in this investigation, we will come to light on how many officials were a part of this entire illegal iron ore scams or not, because without an investigation, it will not be pertinent to blame anyone with whether they were officials or the iron ore company itself. And that is why the government has initiated an SIT to investigate the entire matter. And it's only after the investigation that we'll get a clarity on whether officials were involved, and if they were involved, on what tune were they involved, and what is the transaction of money that was taking place to allow such companies to do illegal iron ore activities. So an investigation has now been set up. In the coming few days, we will get an idea, clearer picture on who all were involved and how much were they involved and what is the transaction we are talking about. Because in the case of Satish sales, we've come across on how crores and crores of iron ore was illegally sent without the information of the government to countries abroad. And that is why this particular decision in the cabinet yesterday highlights the fact that an investigation is need to be done with regards to other iron ore companies also to find out whether it has been done with the help of officials, and if it has been done, then what is the role of the official and what is the role of the company in pushing this illegal activity.